And we want to take this story now live to Istanbul. I'm joined by Harun Armagan. He is Deputy Chairman of Human Rights with President Erdogan's AK party. Mr. Armagan, it's good to have you back on the day. Let's talk about what we have seen happen in the last 24, 48 hours. President Erdogan is now the most powerful leader in Turkey's modern history. This is what he wanted. So maybe you can tell us, when will he end the state of emergency in Turkey?
First of all, in your footage and in your Ankara correspondence accusations, I have to disagree almost all of them. They are false, baseless, and they don't really describe what is the reality in ground. And before I actually address all these points,
well, what is false, Mr. Armagan? What is false, though? Please, if you're going to say that our reporter is not telling the truth, please tell me what is untrue.
I will in a second, but let me just start by congratulating and saying a big thank you to hundreds and thousands of AK Party volunteers and members who have been working weeks, day and night, to make sure that economic prosperity, innovation and democracy is strong in this country. And I also would like to thank to other political campaigns, because their campaigns were also great. It was a great festive atmosphere in Turkey. It was a democratic festival for us, and this shows how Turkish democracy is strong. 87% of people went to ballot boxes. They wanted to express their political opinions, and today we have almost 5 political parties, which maybe within few days will be 7 political parties represented in the parliament.
Well, that is true. But Mr. Armagan, what is untrue, though? Please, what is untrue about the reporting that you have seen?
Sure, I will get to that. First of all, the 90% media controlled by government. Where did you get this number? Seriously, I see this number. I follow this number. This number came out from a discredited think tank in the United States who have been lobbying against Turkish government for many years.
The Committee to Protect Journalists is one organization that has provided us with that number, Mr. Armagan. But, well, let's talk about that. Would you say that there is a free press in Turkey?
But if you allow me to make my point, Brent, media is as free as in Germany, in UK, in other countries. When you talk about the ownership of the media by certain companies, the same problem we see in the UK. Only 2 people have the ownership of 60% of the press media in the UK.
How do you explain, Mr. Armagan, that your country has the most journalists in prison than any other country on the planet? You have more journalists in your country in prison than in China.
I'll address that point, but before that, when you make your claim about state of emergency, but let me just ask a question about this hypocrisy. When there is elections, presidential elections in France last year, there was state of emergency too. And the OSCE report just said there was no problem people gathering together. There was no problem phone campaigning. So state of emergency didn't impact. When it comes to Turkey, state of emergency suddenly becomes a fearful factor for people. No, just opposition, Muharrem İnce, as they claim, they just got a few days ago a rally in Istanbul, over 2 million people. If there was a state of emergency and fear, how do opposition do their rallies? This is all nonsense. It doesn't reflect reality.
Well, how about some numbers that we can use that we got from you, for example? 47% of Turks who did vote, 47% did not vote for Mr. Erdogan. How do you explain that?
Well, this is democracy. You can't expect everyone to vote the same guy. That only happens in dictatorship. If you look at Iran, if you look at Egypt, you would see a dictator. If you look at Syria, you would see a dictator, and their votes are above 90%. But Turkey is a very good democracy, very good example for democracy, and we have different political parties. We will have 7 parties who will be represented in parliament.
But the opposition, Mr. Armagan, the opposition today has said that Turkey is now being led by a one-man regime. That's what the opposition leaders are saying in your country, a one-man regime.
Well, if France and United States are ruled by one-man regime...
Well, let's talk about Turkey. I'm talking about the opposition leaders in your country. Well, what about the opposition leaders in your country?
Well,
They are
well, the
saying a
same
one-man
opposition leader-
regime.
Well, the same opposition leader said today President Erdogan won a lanyard win in today's election, and he said, let's respect this.
And
I
where-
see a problem that you don't really caught that.
Where do we go from here then?
Look, Brent, let's just be fair here, Brent. When President Erdogan wins the elections, it's all rigged. It's just like so many people didn't vote for that. Where did you get this?
I'm not saying that your election was rigged. I'm asking you, when will he end the state of emergency in the country? That was my first question.
Well, Brent,
when will he end it?
Okay. Let me address that. But do you make the same challenge to Angela Merkel, because she didn't really get 75% of the votes in the Germany, but she's going to be leading the country? Would that be a problem for German democracy?
Oh, Mr. Armagan, we're running out of time. But again, I'll ask you the question I started the interview with. When will he end the state of emergency?
Right, I'll express that one. State of emergency is in Turkey. It was necessary because we were fighting three terrorist organizations at the same time. And let me give you one statistic, a real statistic. Last year, terrorist attacks to Turkey dropped 78%. So that shows state of emergency was necessary to make sure that all of our citizens are secure. And also, let me remind you this, Brent, state of emergency and protection of our borders isn't only protection of our borders, but it's also protection of NATO borders and Germany borders.
Okay. Mr. Armagan, we're out of time, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this evening. Harun Armagan, Deputy Chairman of the Human Rights with President Erdogan's AK Party. Mr. Armagan, thank you very much.